Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurava Bhistam Supurakam Gurganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Abhidam Ujvalam Varatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwa Gurun Shah Divyad Bhagavat Premna Vibhija Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandabaranam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishwara Shridaram Bansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevasha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Namo Mahabaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Nama. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. This is Adi-lila chapter 1. The spiritual masters, and I'll begin with verse number 56. Etavadeva jigyasham tatvad jigyasunatmanaha anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all-pervading truth. So I believe this is one of the Chatu Shloki, from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, essential verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Etavadeva jigyasham tatvad jigyasunat manaha anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatshat sarvatra sarvada. Mentioned yesterday how in other scriptures like Ishopanishad, it's mentioned that one has to cultivate an understanding of transcendence and should also know what is nescience. So why should we know what is nescience? Well, one time I remember Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she was talking about we're not trying to insulate or vaccinate ourselves against Maya, in the sense that we not to isolate ourselves. We have to have some also knowledge of this world in order to operate within it. So what I remember with Guru Maharaj, that was one criticism he said of the philosophy that with some people that exists, for instance, of Gurukul, to isolate young devotees from any influences of Maya, but then they don't have any immunity from that when they get older. So one has to be actually functioning within this world, especially to be able to preach. So then the next verse will give us some idea. Chintamanir jayati somagirir gurur me siksha guruscha bhagavan shikipinsha moli yatpara kalpataru balava shikareshu lila swayam vara rasam labate jaya shri. All glories to Chintamani and my initiating spiritual master, Somagiri. All glories to my instructing spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who wears peacock feathers in his crown. Under the shade of his lotus feet, which are like desire trees, Jayashri Radharani enjoys the transcendental mellow of an eternal consort. So I'll read a little of this purport, because you can say, well, what does that verse have to do with cultivating transcendence and also an understanding of cultivating transcendence. Let's see. Directly and indirectly. Well, where's the indirect connection? So this verse is from the Krishna Karnamrita, which was written by a great Vaishnava sannyasi named Bilvamangal Thakur, who is also known as Lila Sukha. He intensely desired to enter into the eternal pastimes of the Lord, and he lived at Vrindaban for 700 years in the vicinity of Brahmakund, a still existing bathing tank in Vrindaban. The history of Bilvamangal Thakur is given in a book called Sri Vallabha Digvijay. He appeared in the 8th century of the Shaka era in the province of Dravida, which is South India, and was the chief disciple of Vishnu Swami. In a list of temples and monasteries kept in Shankaracharya's monastery in Dwarka, Bilvamangal is mentioned as the founder of the Dwarkadish temple there. He entrusted the service of his deity to Hari Brahmacharya, disciple of Vallabhabhata. Bilvamangal Thakur actually entered into the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. He is recorded as transcendental experiences and appreciation in the book known as Krishna Karnamrita. In the beginning of that book, he has offered his obeisances to his different gurus, and it is to be noted that he has adored them all equally. The first spiritual master mentioned is Chintamani, who is one of his instructing spiritual masters because she first showed him the spiritual path. Chintamani was a prostitute with whom Bilvamangal was intimate earlier in his life. She gave him the inspiration to begin on the path of devotional service, and because she convinced him to give up material existence to try for perfection by loving Krishna, he has first offered his respects to her. Next, he offers his respects to his initiating spiritual master Somagiri, and then to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was also his instructing spiritual master. He explicitly mentions Bhagavan, who has peacock feathers on his crown, because the Lord of Vrindaban, Krishna the cowherd boy, used to come to Bilvamangal to talk with him and supply him with milk. In his adoration of Sri Krishna, the Personality of Godhead, he states that Jayashri, the goddess of fortune, Srimati Radharani, takes shelter in the shade of his lotus feet to enjoy the transcendental rasa of nuptial love. The complete treatise, Krishna Karnamrita, is dedicated to the transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani. It is a book to be read and understood by the most elevated devotees of Sri Krishna. So, Bilvamangal Thakur, he's offering his respects to Chintamani, who was a prostitute, and he made so much endeavor to see her, but she instructed him. She said, if you had as much attachment for the Lord as you have for this useless material body, then you would be advanced. And somehow her words, although he was attached to her, he understood what she was saying, that if he was able to show as much devotion to the Lord, for the Lord as he did for her, he would be advanced. And he actually was able to do that. He was able to leave his attachment for her and look for the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So I'll say cultivating knowledge of transcendence with a cultivation of nescience. He was able to, understanding that nescience, he was able to leave it and go to and take shelter of the Lord. Jive shakat nahi tate guru chaitya rupe siksha guru hoy Krishna mahanta swarupe. Since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. So, we are instructed from within by the Chaitya Guru, instructed without or from outside by the spiritual master. So the trouble about relying for internal inspiration from the Chaitya Guru, we see in certain countries, maybe even here, all over the world, there's so many transmissions that you can't receive by radio, television, or internet, because by different governments they're blocked. You can't receive them. There's some blocking. So we're not able to receive all the instructions of Chaitya Guru because our false ego is blocking or jamming those signals. So therefore we must have the instruction and association of the spiritual master, because we can't just rely on our so-called internal realization. Since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. Tato tu sangam at utsrijya satu sajeta buddhiman santa evasya chindanti mano vyasangam uktibi. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with the devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotional service. It's hard to cut that connection with activities unfavorable to devotional service if one is in association with mundane persons. Guru Maharaj said, God save us from our friends. So if we keep association with persons who are always encouraging us to go with them, to engage in activities like drinking and chasing after women or men or dogs, whatever it may be, then through that bad association it will be hard for us to develop some interest in the ideal of serving the Lord. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana kata tadjoshanan ashvapavarga vartmani shradaratir bhaktir anukramishyati. The spiritually powerful message of Godhead can be properly discussed only in a society of devotees, and it is greatly pleasing to hear in that association. If one hears from devotees, the way of transcendental experience quickly opens, and gradually one attains firm faith that in due course develops into attraction and devotion. Ishvara Swarupa Bhakta Tara Adishtan Bhaktera Hridaye Krishner Sadatha Vishram. A pure devotee constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord, who is always situated in his heart. Can't you do that another time? It's like interrupting. Ishvara Sarupa Bhakta Tara Arishtan Bhaktera Hridaye Krishner Sarata Vishram. A pure devotee constantly engaged in loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord, who is always seated in his heart. Saravo Hridayam Mayam Sarunam Hridayam Tvaham Mad Anyat Tena Jananti Naham Tebyo Managapi. Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutas Vayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svanda Stena Gadabrita. Saints of your caliber are therefore Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. This verse was spoken by Maharaj Yudhishthira to Vidura in Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Yudhishthira was receiving his saintly uncle, Vidura, who had been visiting sacred places of pilgrimage. Maharaj Yudhishthira told Vidura that pure devotees like him are personified holy places because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always with them in their hearts. By their association, sinful persons are freed from sinful reactions, and therefore, wherever a pure devotee goes is a sacred place of pilgrimage. The importance of holy places is due to the presence there of such pure devotees. Se bhakta guna hoy, dvivida prakar, parishad guna ek, sadaka gana ar. Se bhakta gan hoy, dvivida prakar, parishad gana ek, sadaka gana ar. Such pure devotees are of two types: personal associates, or parishads, and neophyte devotees, sadhakas. So sadhaka refers to one who is practicing devotional service. So parishad devotee, eternal associate of the Lord, and sadhakas also are who are engaged in service through sadhana bhakti. Ishwarer avatar teen prakar, amshavatar ar, gunavatar, shaktiavesh avatar tritiya mat, amshavatar purusha matsyadika jatta. There are three categories of incarnations of Godhead: partial incarnations, qualitative incarnations, and empowered incarnations. So, partial incarnations, Amshavatar, qualitative incarnations, Gunavatars, and empowered incarnations, Shakti-Vaishavatars. The Purushas and Matsyas are examples of partial incarnations. There are three categories of incarnations of Godhead: partial incarnations, qualitative incarnations, and empowered incarnations. The Purushas and Matsya are examples of partial incarnations. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Teen, Gunavatare Gani, Shaktyave, Sanakadi, Pritu, Vyasamuni. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are qualitative incarnations, Gunavatars. Empowered incarnations are those like the Kumaras, King Pritu, and Mahamuni Vyas, the compiler of the Vedas. Dvi Rupe Hoy Bhagavaner Prakash Eke Ta Prakasha Hoy Arete Ta Vilas. The personality of Godhead exhibits himself in two kinds of forms, Prakash and Vilas. Ekai Vigraha Jari Hoy Bahurup Akareta Vedanahi Ekai Swarup Mahishi Vivahe Jaiche Jaiche Koilaras Ihake Kohiye Krishnera Mukhya Prakash. When the personality of Godhead expands himself in many forms, all non-different in their features, as Lord Krishna did when he married 16,000 queens and when he performed his rasa dance, such forms of the Lord are called manifested forms, Prakash Vigrahas. So they are all appearing the same as the original form of the Lord, Prakash Vigrahas. Chitram Vaitai Tad Ekena Vapusha Yugapat Pritak Griheshu Vi asta sahasram striya eka udavahat. It is astounding that Lord Krishna, who is one without a second, expanded himself in 16,000 similar forms to marry 16,000 queens in their respective homes. This is referring to Dwarka, where the Lord expanded himself in 16,108 different forms. Rasotsava sampravrito gopi mandala manditaha yogeshwarer krishnena tasam madhye dvayor. When Lord Krishna, surrounded by groups of cowherd boys, when Lord Krishna, surrounded by groups of cowherd girls or gopis, began the festivities of the rasa dance, the Lord of all mystic powers placed himself between each two girls. Pravishtena grihatdanam kante swanikatam striyaha yam manyaram nabastavad vimana shata sankulam divo kasam sa dharanam ati otsukya britatmanam tato dunduvayo nedur nipetu pushpa vrishtayaha. When the cowherd girls and Krishna thus joined together, each girl thought that Krishna was dearly embracing her alone. To behold this wonderful pastime of the Lord's, the denizens of heaven and their wives, all very eager to see the dance, flew in the sky in their hundreds of airplanes. They showered flowers and beat sweetly on drums. Anekatra prakatata rupashyai kashyai yaikada sarvata tatsvarupaiva sa prakasha itiryate. If numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called prakasha vigrahas of the Lord. If numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called prakash vigrahas of the Lord. Ekai vigraha kintu akare hoy an aneka prakasha hoy vilasa taranam. But when the numerous forms are slightly different from one another, they are called vilasa vigrahas. Swarupam anyakaram yat tasya bhati vilasata prayenatma samam shaktya sa vilaso nigadyate. When the Lord displays numerous forms with different features, by his inconceivable potency, such forms are called vilasa vigrahas. Jaiche Baladeva Parashome Narayana Jaiche Vasudeva Pradyumnadi Sankarshana. Examples of such vilas vigrahas are Baladev, Narayan in Vaikuntha Dham, and the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Shankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So there's differences between the expanded forms, and those are called vilasa vigrahas. Ishvare Shakti hoy 18 prakar Eke Lakmi Ganapure Mahishe Guna Ar Braji Gopi Gana Ar Sabate Pradhan Brajendra Nandana Yate Swayam Bhagavan. The energies, consorts of the Supreme Lord, or Shaktis, the energies, consorts of the Supreme Lord are of three kinds. The Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, the queens in Dwarka, and the gopis in Vrindaban. The gopis are the best of all, for they have the privilege of serving Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, the son of the king of Raja, the son of the king of Raja. Swayam Rupa Krishna hoy Vyuhatarasam Bhakta Sahite hoy Tahara Avaran. The personal associates of the primeval Lord Sri Krishna are his devotees who are identical with him. He is complete with his entourage of devotees. Bhaktadi Krami Koila Sabhara Bandhan E Sabhara Bandhan Sarva Shubera Karan. Now I have worshipped all the various levels of devotees. Worshipping them is the source of all good fortune. Pratama Shloke Kohe Samanya Mangalacharan Dvitiya Shlokate Kore Vishesha Bandhan. In the first verse I have invoked a general benediction, but in the second I have prayed to the Lord in a particular form. Bande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Godadaye Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudo. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. Brajaje Bihare Purve Krishna Balaram Koti Surya Chandrajini Dohara Nijadam Se Dui Jagatere Hoya Sadai Gauda Deshe Purva Shaile Korila Udai. Sri Krishna and Balaram, the personalities of Godhead, who formerly appeared in Vrindaban and were millions of times more effulgent than the sun and moon, have arisen over the eastern horizon of Gauda Desh, West Bengal, being compassionate for the fallen state of the world. Well, this is why also we have, among other things, but have very much attachment to Bengal. Because Sri Krishna and Balaram, the personalities of Godhead, who formerly appeared in Vrindaban and were millions of times more effulgent than the sun and the moon, have arisen over the eastern horizon of Gauda Desh, West Bengal, being compassionate for the fallen state of the world. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jahara Prakashe Sarva Jagat Ananda. The appearance of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda has surcharged the world with happiness. Surya Chandra Hare Jaiche Sab Adhikar Bastu Prakashya Kore Dharmera Prachar. As the sun and moon drive away darkness by their appearance and reveal the nature of everything, these two brothers dissipate the darkness of ignorance, covering the living beings, and enlighten them with knowledge of the absolute truth. As the sun and moon drive away darkness by their appearance and reveal the nature of everything, these two brothers dissipate the darkness of ignorance, covering the living beings, and enlighten them with knowledge of the absolute truth. Agyana tamera nam kohiye kaitava dharma artha kama moksha vansha adisab. The darkness of ignorance is called kaitava, the way of cheating, which begins with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. It's very is very interesting because normally the Vedas are dealing with these four purusharthas, dharmartha, kama, moksha, which is religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Supposedly there are the four main goals mentioned in the Vedas, but here it says the darkness of ignorance is called kaitava, the way of cheating, which begins with religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. These so-called goals of the Vedas are called kaitava. They're just cheating. They're not really our real interest. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni krite kimva parer ishvara sadyo ridi avarudyate tra kritibi susrushubis tatsyanat. The great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled by Mahamuni Vyasadeva from 4 original verses, describes the most elevated and kind-hearted devotees and completely rejects the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity. It propounds the highest principle of eternal religion, which can factually mitigate the threefold miseries of a living being and award the highest benediction of full prosperity and knowledge. Those willing to hear the message of this scripture in a submissive attitude of service can at once capture the Supreme Lord in their hearts. Therefore, there is no need for any other scripture, for any scripture other than Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, this verse we heard mentions that whole Srimad Bhagavatam expanded from the Chatushloki, the 4 original verses. The great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled by Mahamuni Vyasadeva from 4 original verses, describes the most elevated and kind-hearted devotees and completely rejects the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity. It propounds the highest principle of eternal religion, which can factually mitigate the threefold miseries of a living being and award the highest benediction of full prosperity and knowledge. Those willing to hear the message of this scripture in a submissive attitude of service can at once capture the Supreme Lord in their hearts. Therefore, there is no need for any other scripture than Srimad Bhagavatam. So this the verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioning that so-called other process like dharmartha, kama, moksha are actually cheating. And this is mentioned directly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaitavotra, kaitava. Taramadye moksha bansha kaitava pradhan, jahoite Krishna bhakti hoy antardan. The foremost process of cheating is the desire to achieve liberation by merging into the Supreme, for this causes the permanent disappearance of loving service to Krishna. So we're against that kind of liberation, to lose one's identity. Then you'll lose a serving relationship with the Lord by losing your identity. The foremost process of cheating is the desire to achieve liberation by merging into the Supreme, for this causes the permanent disappearance of loving service to Krishna. And that is what most people's conception of spiritual reality is, to become one with the Supreme. But that is cheating, that is kaitava. Prashabdena mokshabhi sandir api nirasta iti. The prefix pra in the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma projita, pra. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmat saranam satam. And then, let's see that verse again. The prefix pra in this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam indicates that the desire for liberation is completely rejected. Krishna Bhaktir Bhadaka Jata Shubha Karma Seha ek jivera agyana tamodharma. All kinds of activities, both auspicious and inauspicious, that are detrimental to the discharge of transcendental loving service to Lord Sri Krishna, are actions of the darkness of ignorance. All kinds of activities, both auspicious and inauspicious, that are detrimental to the discharge of transcendental loving service to Lord Sri Krishna, are actions of the darkness of ignorance. Both auspicious and inauspicious. And really, I mean, there are many persons, they'll tell you what is mentioned according to planets or astrology or anything, tell you what is auspicious and inauspicious. But in one sense, as I heard from my gurus, my guru, I don't want to really know what's inauspicious even, because then I may avoid doing a necessary activity for devotional service because I consider I've heard it's inauspicious. And it may preclude me from acting when I have to do something. Sometimes we have to act and do things which are even inauspicious. So we really don't really want to guide myself by what is auspicious and what is inauspicious, because it may influence me in terms of what I want, what I consider should be done. I remember once I said to Srila Prabhupada, well, I wanted to travel, but today is Thursday, so it's Brihaspati Barbell. It's not an auspicious time to travel. And at the same time, I have to travel, so what should I do? And then Prabhupada said, my spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he was very conversant with all the principles mentioned of what is auspicious and inauspicious. He said he knew about all of them and he followed them. He said, do you follow everything? I said, no. And then he said, then why just this? Now go. And he sent me out on Thursday, even though normally other persons wouldn't travel on Thursday because Brihaspati Barbell is not supposed to be auspicious to begin, to initiate or begin trips or activities. But Prabhupada said, my spiritual master understood these principles and he followed them. But do you follow all of them? No. Then why just this? Now go. Krishna Bhaktir Bharaka Jat Shubha Shubha Karma Seha Ek Jivera Ajnana Tamo Dharma. All kinds of activities, both auspicious and inauspicious, that are detrimental to the discharge of transcendental loving service to Lord Sri Krishna, are actions of the darkness of ignorance, even if they're so-called auspicious things. If they don't foster devotional service, even they may be auspicious. We don't care for them. Jahara prasade aid tamuhoinash tamunasha kore kore tatvera prakash. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, this darkness of ignorance is removed and the truth is brought to light. Tattva Bastu Krishna Krishna Bhakti Prema Roop Nama Sankirtan Sab Ananda Swarup. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting or Nama Sankirtan of the holy name, which is the essence of all bliss. Absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy name, which is the essence of all bliss. Surya Chandra Bahirer Tamasa Vinashe Bahir Bastu Gatapata Adise Prakashe. The sun and moon dissipate the darkness of the external world and thus reveal external material objects like pots and plates. So you can see things because the sun and moon illuminate the darkness, and that way you don't trip and fall over pots and plates and so many of them. Duibai Ridayera Shali Andakar Dui Bhagavat Sange Karana Sakatkar. But these two brothers, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavats, persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead. Persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead. But these two brothers, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavatas, persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead. Ek Bhagavat Bora, Bhagavata Shastra, Ara Bhagavat Bhakta, Bhakti Rasa Patra. One of the Bhagavats is the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. One is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is a devotee absorbed in bhakti ras, in the mellows of loving devotion. Dui Bhagavat Dvara Diya Bhakti Ras Tahara Hridaye Tara Preme Hoy Vas. Through the actions of these two Bhagavatas, the Lord instills the mellows of transcendental loving service into the heart of a living being, and thus the Lord, in the heart of his devotee, comes under the control of the devotee's love. Ek Adbhuta Sama Kale Dohara Prakash Aradbhuta Chitta Guhara Tamakorinash. The first wonder is that both brothers appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart. First wonder is that both brothers appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart. E Chandra Surya Dui Parama Sadai Jagatera Bhagye Gode Korila Udai. These two, the sun and moon, are very kind to the people of the world. Thus, for the good fortune of all, they have appeared on the horizon of Bengal. E Dui Prabhu Kori Chanana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignanash Abhishta Puran. Let us therefore worship the holy feet of these two lords. Thus one can be rid of all difficulties on the path of self-realization. E Dui Shloke Koila Mangala Bandhan Tritiya Shlokara Arta Shuna Sarvajan. I have invoked the benediction of the Lords with these two verses, text 1 and 2 of this chapter. Now please hear attentively the purport of the third verse. Bhaktaya Bahuya Granta Vistare Dare Vistare Na Varni Sararta Kohi Apakare. I purposely avoid extensive description for fear of increasing the bulk of this book. I shall describe the essence as concisely as possible. And the next verse is I always consider this next short description very essential. It is mitam chas, sharam cha, vacho e, bhagmita iti, mitam cha, saram cha, vacha e, bhagmita iti. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. True eloquence is to speak the truth simply. Don't want to hear some big purport with many words that just doesn't say the truth concisely. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Shunile kandibe chiter agyanadi dosh Krishne Gara Prema Habe Paibe Santosh. Simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all the faults of ignorance and thus one will achieve deep love for Krishna. This is the path of peace. Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Dvaita Mahatva Tara Bhakta Bhakti Nama Prema Rasa Tattva Bina Bina Liki Jachi Korea Bichar Shunile Janibe Sab Bastu Tattvasar. If one patiently hears about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu, and their devotees, devotional activities, names and fame, along with the mellows of their transcendental loving exchanges, one will learn the essence of the absolute truth. Therefore, I have described these in the Chaitanya Charitamrita with logic and discrimination. If one patiently hears about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu, and their devotees, devotional activities, names, and fame, along with the mellows of their transcendental loving exchanges, one will know the essence of the absolute truth. Therefore, I have described these in the Chaitanya Charitamrita with logic and discrimination. Sri Rupa Raghunath Parijara As Chaitanya Charitamrita Kohebrit Krishnadas, praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi-lila, first chapter, describing the spiritual masters. Okay, now let's sing Hari Harai. Hare Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madan-Mohan
Giridhari Gopinath Madan-Mohan
Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Janardan Shiva Sari Gauda Bhaktivedanta Seva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jao Ite Vignana Shabishta Puran Echai Gosai Char Mui Charadas Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhariju Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Tilak Neri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmamacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Paravajaka Charya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Paravajaka Charya Ashtatara Sadashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakakshir Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Sunanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachar Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunashi Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishwavarena Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Kushamasha Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Sri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Sri Koladvip Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Soquel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindaban Dham Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopika Vardhan Shyam Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Shri Purushottama Dham Ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo Ki Jai. Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Shri Nrsimha Dev Ki Jai. Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki Jai.